Last week, I was scrolling through the Smartsheet community when this particular question caught my eye. Someone wanted to automatically mark an invoice as overdue if it was 20 days past the invoice date. Simple idea, right? But it got me thinking, can you actually do that in Smartsheet using just automation workflows? Hi, I'm Levon from Know My Sheet, and after spending 5 years at Smartsheet designing and delivering training to thousands of users, I started this channel dedicated to helping new and existing Smartsheet users break through as solution builders. Now in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to build this exact workflow, and if you stick around to the end, I'll show you a common mistake people make when testing automations. Now, to be fair, the person asking this question got a really good answer from someone, and the solution involved adding some additional columns and using some formulas to update these statuses. But I want to show you how you can do that using just automations. So let's take a look at this example sheet that I have put together. So I've called this Know My Sheet Limited Invoices, and we have a number of columns in here. You'll notice there's an invoice column. There's a customer name, and here are some examples of the services they might have purchased from me. So it could be one-on-one Smartsheet coaching sessions, it could be team trainings, team onboardings, group trainings, things like that. Now, the next column is a key column, this invoice date column. So this is actually a date type column. Notice that when I double click on there, we can see it's a date column, and that tells us that Smartsheet is now expecting and using the data in this column as a date, and that means that we can start to use some additional features in Smartsheet based on that. Next up is the status column. So this is a drop-down list. I've pre-populated it. I've made some assumptions based on what the person was asking in the question. I'm assuming here just 3 options. You could have more, you could have different options. I've selected here sent for when an invoice has been sent out, paid once the person has received payment for the invoice, and overdue when they haven't received payment. Now, another column I added here was called the paid column, this checkbox column. And this is just a way that when someone has received payment, they can mark that particular row as paid. And we'll see how that links into another automation that I've built into this sheet later on. Now, these next 2 columns are just really for demonstration purposes. One is to show the number of days overdue a particular invoice is, and that's using a formula that I've built. And the next column is a flag column to flag if something hasn't been paid, and if it's overdue, it's going to raise a flag. So I'm not going to go into the details of building these formulas in this particular video. We're going to focus on the automations. All right, are you ready to build this automation? Let's go. I'm going to click here on the automations button. All right, so we're going to click here, create from scratch. Always give your automations a really meaningful name. It's going to help you so much in the future whenever you have to come back and do any kind of updates or changes or troubleshooting. I'm going to call this update status to overdue. All right, there's our title. So now we have 3 aspects we want to focus on. There's here a trigger section. There's some conditions to filter out rows. And then there's the actual action that we want to add. Now we're going to start here with the trigger, and we want to trigger things based off the date, because we know that we're looking at things that are like 20 days or more overdue. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to change to the trigger to when a date is reached. And you'll see that it defaults to run once on a particular day. Let's change that. We want to make this into a recurring trigger. So I'm going to click on run once, and I'm going to choose custom. So here we have this repeat every, and I'm going to make this daily. So I'm going to choose repeat every 1 day. And then we also need to change the start date to start from tomorrow. So Smartsheet is going to ask us to use a future date for when this automation will trigger. Don't worry, I'll still be able to run and test this automation in this video. So here I'm going to click done. And now next we want to choose what time of day every day we want this to trigger. So here I'm in the UK, so I've got the GMT Europe Lisbon time zone here. I'm going to change this to trigger at 1 AM every morning. Okay, there's our trigger all set up. So next up we want to choose some conditions. We want to make sure that only the rows in our sheet that we want to have changed to overdue are the ones that are impacted. Let's go here and click select a field, and I'm going to select invoice date, and here I'm going to choose, based on the fact that this is the date column, we get some date related options here. I'm going to choose not in the last 19 days. So any date that's not in the last 19 days. But the other thing we need to consider here is that we want to capture only things that are in the past. So here I'm going to add another condition here, add a condition, and we're going to say and where invoice date is in the past. So basically anything that's 20 days or over in the past is going to be captured by this filter. Next up, we want to actually think about what are the statuses that we want to ignore, because in our rows we've got overdue, we've got paid, we've got sent. If something's already been if something has already been paid, or if it's overdue, we don't necessarily want to make changes to the status on that column. So let's add another condition here. Let's click add condition, and let's choose status. Now we've got some options here. We can either say is one of and then choose sent, or we can choose is not one of and kind of do the inverse, choose paid or overdue. And there's our filter conditions now completed. So the last thing we need to add is our action. Notice all these different actions that we can choose from in Smartsheet, but we're going to go straight to change cell value. So we're going to choose the column in which we want to change the value. I'm going to go down and find status, and we're going to change that to overdue. So there we have it. This automation is now ready to run. I'm just going to scroll upwards briefly so you can see the whole automation. When a date is reached, every day starting from tomorrow, based on when I'm doing this video, at 1 AM, it's going to trigger this automation. It's going to check, is this row not in the last 19 days and is it in the past? Then it's going to go to the next check. And is the status not one of paid or overdue? Anything that still filter through that is going to have the status changed to overdue. I'm going to select save. And there's our new update status to overdue automation workflow. So we can test that in a minute. But first, let's just go back into the sheet and let's have a look at the actual information that we're going to expect to change once we run this. So as I scroll down, you'll notice some are already marked as overdue. They were manually set to overdue. A couple have been paid. Here we've got, using the formulas and the formatting that I've created, we can see that we're expecting all of these ones here from row 11 down to 18 to change from sent to overdue once we run this automation. And then overnight, as this runs automatically, I would expect this next row here, row 19, to also change to overdue, because that 19 days since invoice will have changed to 20 days since invoiced. All right, let's go ahead and run this automation. I'm selecting automations there. I'm going to make sure I'm checking the right automation, update status to overdue, selecting this 3-dot menu, and notice there's a test now and a run now option. In my experience, these both seem to do exactly the same thing. So if anyone knows differently, I would love to know, but I'm going to choose test now. And this is a way for us to basically run an automation and have it ignore the trigger block. So it's going to respect any of the conditions that we set and the filters and run the action, but it won't, it will ignore what's in the trigger block. And this is what I was saying sometimes can cause issues for people. So be sure to hang around till the end, and I'm going to show you how to avoid that. So for now, I'm going to choose run the workflow, and we can see that this is run successfully. Let's get back into the sheet, and there we go. As I hoped and expected, we've got now all of our overdue items that are 20 days or more in the past, that sent invoice dates of 20 days and more past, have now been changed to overdue. So that's great news. So what I like about using this automation is I haven't had to add a lot of extra columns. Sometimes the number of columns you have in a sheet can be quite, you can have up to 400 columns in a sheet, but I try and minimize the number of columns I might need in a sheet just for performance and for clarity for people using sheets. So how about this issue that you can fall into where if you're running that test or run workflow, you might get results you weren't hoping to have. Let's click on automations again. And in fact, before I do that, I'm just going to copy this data in these columns. Just so I've got that and I can kind of restore it in a minute because I want to show you what will happen. So here I'm going to click on automations. And notice we have this update status once paid. So this one is an automation I built that whenever someone clicks the checkbox for paid, it will automatically change the status to paid. Let's open that up and we can see how that one works. It's reasonably straightforward. When rows are added or changed in the trigger box, and when paid changes to checked, change the cell value in the status to paid. Let me just cancel that out for a minute and just show you. So for example here, if let's imagine this row 12 has been paid, if I mark that as paid, I would expect that automation to run and then to change it. And there you can see it's just changed that now to say paid. So that's great. That kind of works also in line with the other automation we made, which is ignoring the paid status. So we can see those two automations working in harmony. But what if I was to run the test on this one, this automation as it stands? Let me go back here and update status once paid. I'm going to choose run now, trigger for the entire sheet. And now you can see it's run. But when I go back to the sheet, I'm going to have sort of a mild panic because I can see here that all of the statuses have now changed to paid. Let me see if I can just paste that data back. There we go. I'm just going to paste that information back. All right, so why did that happen? Let's go back and check. I'm going to go back to automations and edit. So remember what I said, when you run or test an automation workflow, Smartsheet ignores what's in the trigger section. And the way I'd set this automation up was that in the trigger box, I'd also added this kind of like additional check to see when paid changes to checked, it will then trigger the workflow. But unfortunately, when I actually test it, it's going to ignore the trigger. So it's not going to look at whether checked has just been selected. and then it's just going to run the conditions and the actual action. So you can see here, change cell value and status to paid. That's why everything changed to paid. So how can we avoid that? Well, in this case, what I can do is add a condition filter here. And then I can, I can either remove it from this one, or I can kind of like duplicate it. I can add here, paid is checked. And I'm going to hit save. So now once I've run this, it should respect that condition and not change the status of every row. Let's double check. So I'll just run that again. And there we go. So it hasn't updated that time. So really just something for you to bear in mind. If you're ever going to run or test workflows in Smartsheet, just be sure that you're really clear what's in that trigger box and what might get ignored and changed if you were to run it. All right. Well, I hope this has been useful for you. I'd love to hear feedback, so please do write anything in the comments. Is there anything that you think I could have done differently, better? Do you have some suggestions? Especially, are there any questions that you have yourself that you would love me to do a video about? I'll be happy to add some more. I'll be adding these videos to this channel on a regular basis. Thank you very much for watching.